All right, we have our basic window up. Now we need to add a canvas, and we'll put a rectangle in the canvas. Our goal will be to be able to change the color of that rectangle every time we press a key. So let's select starterwindow.cs, and then down here after we've created the window, let's create a canvas. Canvas equals new canvas, and then curly brackets, and we'll set the background color from the brushes class, which has a lot of built-in colors. Here we can actually see a list of what they are. Cornflower blue sounds nice. Let's try that one. Follow that with a comma, and at the right curly bracket here on my line 22, follow that with a semicolon. Now you've got to make the canvas the content of the window. That's easy to do in one line. Win.content equals canvas. That should be enough to run. Let's see if we see the cornflower blue canvas instead of that horrible magenta color that no one would ever use for anything. Yep, that's a pretty cornflower blue. Now let's see if we can add a rectangle. We're going to want to be able to access that rectangle from outside the starter window constructor. We want other methods, other named blocks of code to be able to make use of the rectangle we're about to create. So let's create a field of our starter window class. A field is a variable that can be accessed by any method in the object that we make out of that class. So we'll say private rectangle, and I'm going to call it rectangle. And notice what happened up here. Visual Studio Code added a namespace using system.drawing. That has a rectangle in it, but that's not the one I want to use. So I'm going to delete that. And now Visual Studio Code is complaining at line 8 with that red squiggly line you see here that it doesn't know what a rectangle is. So I'll float my cursor over that and then move over to Quick Fix and click on Quick Fix. It's offering me some namespaces where it thinks it might find a definition of a rectangle. Well, it already tried to use system.drawing. That's not the one we want. We want this one, avalonia.controls.shapes. So I'll click on that now. Notice that got added here at line 2. That's the one I want. You got to keep your eye on that. That's the whole point of namespaces. Namespaces can have classes in them that have the same name as each other, but because they're in separate namespaces, they're totally different classes. You want to be sure you're using the namespace that has the class you really want. In this case, avalonia.controls.shapes contains a definition of the rectangle class. That's the one we want to be using. All right, now that we've created our window and canvas, let's create a rectangle. We're going to store a reference to that rectangle in the variable we just created. And like most rectangles, it has a height. We're going to make this one be 100 pixels high, comma. Give it a width of 200 pixels. And we want to fill it with a solid color. I think orange is a pretty choice. And again, at the right curly bracket, after you create the rectangle, put a semicolon. And now we've got to make our new rectangle a child of the canvas. You've seen this before with the lines exercise. So we'll say canvas.children.add rectangle. That should be enough to see it. Let's try running it. Yep, there it is. It's up the upper left corner. Looks a little bit like a flag or something. If we want to position our rectangle somewhere else, we have to follow what might be a surprising set of steps. They're not long, but they're not obvious. So I'll close this this window now, and I'm going to set some values of the rectangle. So I'll say, hey, rectangle, I want to set a value. That value relates to where you sit in canvases. So the left property in a canvas, I'm going to tell it where I want that to be. I'm going to say I want that to be 300 pixels over. We'll do something similar to control its vertical position. We'll set value of the rectangle. The value we're setting is called the canvas.top property. I would like it to be down about, I think 80 pixels, down from the top. Okay, only 2 more lines, but notice they're not values you set when you create the rectangle. You can change these anytime you want, so you can move the rectangle around after you've created it. Let's run this program and see if the rectangle lands where we think it will. Yeah, that was pretty good. All right, we've got our object, and it has a color. In the next step, we'll add the code to create an event handler to react to the event of a key being pressed by changing the color of that rectangle.